whole mood and atmosphere of it was like a 1970s Soviet time warp.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Castle, and I'm here today in the studio with Calvin Sun.
Thank you for having me.
So let me tell you a little bit about him. He's an emergency medicine resident physician here in New York City. But really, what's really cool about that is while he was graduating medical school, he has managed to travel to more than 150 countries during that period of time, which still amazes me until today when I first found out. But today, really, we are here to talk about especially his trip to North Korea. As many of you would have known that back in 2017, Otto Warmbier, he was an American college student. He was sent back to the country in a coma after being detained in North Korea. A few days later, he died. It all began when he was accused of sneaking onto a restricted floor of his hotel and attempting to steal a political poster. His father, Fred Warmbier, said of Otto, he had severe brain damage, systematically tortured and intentionally injured by Kim Jong-un and his regime, stating that that was no accident. Calvin, back in 2011, that was about 7 years ago, he was in the same floor as Otto did. We are going to touch more on that a little later, but first, Calvin, my first question for you would be 7 years ago, you visited North Korea again, and I've watched videos and heard news about North Korea. You know, people, they say they try to escape, like how they were put into labor camps and like starvation and things like that. So when you first visited North Korea, how was it like for you? Like, what did you see?
Well, first, visiting North Korea as a tourist is very different as growing up in North Korea as a civilian there. What we saw, we were allowed to see in North Korea was Pyongyang most of the time, the capital city. It's a very gray, large, industrial like era kind of city. I think the closest thing I would say is to a time machine, like stuck in the 1970s Soviet time warp where everything that was built then has stayed then since then. So that being said, not a lot of people, very sprawling mass, like a Soviet-style city, a lot of blockbusters kind of buildings, and as if God turned the color off when you landed. Other than maybe red, there's gray everywhere. So what we were allowed to explore, there were very empty streets, but then every now and then there would be pockets of large numbers of people going somewhere, and you'll see that on my website and some of my photos where most of the shots I have are devoid of people, and then every now and then there's huge crowds, whether they're going to work or they're online for something. But it's very eerie, very, and I wouldn't say fake. I definitely believe that what we're seeing was the real thing in Pyongyang. There were enough people to make it feel like you were in a real city. But overall, like the whole mood and atmosphere of it was like a 1970s Soviet time warp, where you were like just stuck in time and exploring like a whole different kind of world after landing from a place like Beijing, which is completely opposite.
Because you went through Beijing and how you see like it's a really colorful city, and then you go there, it's like
right. Beijing's intense. Beijing is like literally punches you in the face, and when you land in Pyongyang, it's like it's just a cold, dark room. Mm-hmm. I have on my blog post, on my first post when I landed in Pyongyang, I have a song that I put as a background music, and I think that song adequately describes the feeling, the mood that I was there. The song is from the opening scene of the Social Network by, that was a big movie 2-3 years ago in Hollywood. I'm sorry, 5-6 years ago. And I think that's a perfect song that best describes the atmosphere there.
All right, so right now we're gonna watch a short 30 seconds video. So that was Otto Warmbier, like I said in the beginning, that he was the American college student who was sentenced to 15 years of hard labor after he was allegedly trying to steal a propaganda poster. He later died after being sent home in a coma. You stay in the same hotel as he did because apparently that's where all the tourists stay when they go to North Korea, and you went to the same floor. Can you tell us a little more about the details of what you saw on that floor that, according to officials, never existed?
So when we stayed there, it was the only hotel that tourists can stay, and we stayed there for about 5 days, 5 nights, and it is unlike any other floor in the hotel. We had decided to wander around the hotel on our last night there. We're all in our rooms, the itinerary was over, we had about 6 to 7 hours to kill before we had to get on our buses for the flight home. We were supposed to go to sleep, but a lot of us were, still buzzed about, having a last couple hours in North Korea, and it was made a suggestion to just explore the rest of the hotel, the place that we had called home for the last 5 nights. So, and the hotel is huge, and it's the only hotel where tourists can stay. So it has everything from, a casino, a spa, a bowling alley, a rooftop restaurant, a bar, a liquor store. All of that is available on the hotel. And the only rule that we were given on the hotel was to not leave the hotel.
So you can explore the hotel? Yeah,
no one ever said we couldn't explore the hotel. The only rule that we were told was do not leave the hotel, do not leave the island that the hotel is on. So at the time in 2011, we felt it was fine to explore, and we did. And we had explored a lot of the hotel anyway in the last 4 nights. But we don't really want to just floor by floor just to see what we could be missing out on. And we started from the bottom, and we went up all the way to the top, took the elevator, and decided to just take the stairs. And when we were walking up the stairs from the bottom floor, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 is what we're so used to seeing, because the elevator buttons shows 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
As we see in the picture, we can see 5.
So, at the time, when we were going up the 4th floor, we saw an open door that would have been the 5th floor. It was like, oh, there is a 5th floor. And the friend who had went ahead said, I think I hear screaming. So I don't feel comfortable going this way. I didn't hear anything, but we ended up, I don't know whether he heard anything or not, but we ended up going down from the 6th floor. And yes, there is a floor between 4 and 6. So the door is open, and there was nobody there, and anyone could have wandered in there if they decided to take the stairs to their rooms, which a lot of people did. Some people stayed on the 6th floor, 7th floor, 8th floor. There were rooms everywhere. So just like anyone would have walked up, we just wandered in, just taking a look. Nobody was in there. And the floor itself was very different from every other floor, where every other floor in the hotel was really high, really high ceilings. Here, the ceiling was cut in half. It's very low. It felt like there maybe had been a floor within a floor. I don't know for sure, but we just had to duck. And it was very long. It was very creepy. It was very eerie. Nobody was there. It had this a loud humming sound. And you can see it from the video. And we spent about 5 to 10 minutes there, just wandering around. And there was a room that had camera equipment and TV screens. And, we didn't know what to make of it. All these floor-to-ceiling paintings of this, what it seemed like pro-North Korean propaganda.
So for example, you can see here, it's saying every product of the Americans is our enemy.
Yeah, that's what it seemed like to us. Yeah. 2011, we didn't know what to make of it. None of us could speak or read Korean. So what we saw from this is, whatever you could take from it, things that were very proudly Korean, of that seemed like they were, yelling at us. So, and then after about 5-10 minutes there, that was it's pretty small. There's really nothing else to see. And then a staff member approached us and said, "Hey, are you lost?" Very friendly, just "Are you lost?" Generally, and we were "Yeah." Technically, we're just wandering. And he's "Oh, no problem. If you need to go back to your room," and he just showed us where the elevators were and let us be. No escorting us back, no finger pointing or hand wringing or you shouldn't have done that. We went back to our rooms, and then that was that. And some of us talked in our rooms. About an hour or two later, a group of 2 or 3 others to say, "Hey, we're going to go back," and they left. And another group decided to go back. Another group went back. And over the course of the evening, there have been multiple trips, and every one of them came back on their own. And we're "Yeah, no big deal." That's what it seemed at the time. I didn't.
It doesn't feel like you guys are doing something bad or going to a restricted floor.
Right. Nobody ever told us we shouldn't explore the hotel. The only rule was don't leave the hotel. right? And somebody who had traveled there before on another trip had said that the reason why nothing really happens at the time when we went in 2011 was because at the time when we went in 2011 is that the floor doesn't exist. The knowledge of it and everything doesn't exist. So you can't really, I believe, get in trouble for something, exploring something that doesn't exist. That's what we thought. But we were just, wandering around. Yeah, just curious. And yeah, I mean, the people, they knew, like everyone knew that we were there. It's well-known knowledge. I think things have changed since 2011. I think I wouldn't, recommend going there knowing everything has been happening since.
Yeah. Back to what was your first response when you heard what happened to Otto? Before even he was sent home and then he passed later, when he was being detained, I'm sure you heard the news, what do you feel about it? I
was shocked. I was very sad. It's my condolences go out to his family, and what he went through was just unfortunate and just shocking, and it's devastating to hear that as a traveler myself, with a sense of curiosity for the world. And sometimes you just can't explain for things that you weren't there for, but all I know is that it's awful. So you saw the video that apparently it might be Otto, of him trying to take the poster down. If the video is real, and if it is of him, and I can't say because I was not there, I was not on that trip. I went into North Korea 5-6 years before, let alone 3 to 4 years before anything happened to any tourists. When we went in 2011, nothing bad had happened to any tourist in North Korea. You had, as I said many times before, you had a higher chance of getting hit by a car back home than have anything happen to you in North Korea, because statistically, the number of tourists that had anything bad happen was 0 in 2011. And when he went in 2015, I don't know if they had video cameras there, right? I don't know if there were video cameras. I mean, I didn't see any video cameras when we went, let alone if that's the floor that he was on. Yeah. It's only presumed that he was on that floor because that's the only thing we got after, and I'm just, making it clear that I don't know. And how I felt when I saw it was just in a sense of insecurity, just not knowing. I can't say if it was real or not. I can't say it was of him or not. And I can't say that it was of the place that we were at, because we don't know. Do I recognize it? Do I not recognize it? I mean, every floor, it's a communist country, so everything's built to look it's very similar to one another. So the feeling is, I don't know. I mean, that could be a feeling. So if you were given a choice, would you go back to the 5th floor, even revisit North Korea? I usually don't travel to the same country twice. There's so much of the world to see, and I'm only young once. So I have this not a rule, and it's a rule I sometimes, break. But it's like if my friend's getting married, I'll go back to another country, just to support them, get married, or like they're having a destination birthday. But just as a traveler, I usually don't try to travel the same place twice because there's so much things to see. So I guess your answer is no, not really. So how did you, can you tell us the process of going to North Korea, like application, and how did you get in and all these things? It's very easy. It really depends on what nationality and what kind of passport you have. As if you're a Chinese person with a Chinese passport, it's very easy. And you just, boom, you're ready. I had a friend that was on my trip with a Chinese passport, and she had a much easier time than any of us. I mean, she even got a visa, an actual visa in her passport with a stamp. But if you're an American with an American passport, or if you're from Canada or France or British, there is a process, just like any other visa process. And it's actually easier than other countries. You find a tour company that you want to go with, you do your research, and you reach out to them, and if you like whatever their rates are offering, they basically give you a little form and you fill it out. It takes about 5 minutes. You don't have to send in your passport, and then a couple emails later or 3 days later, your visa's ready. You just have to show up in Beijing to pick it up. So I think the hardest part is realizing that it's actually pretty easy. Most people don't even bother looking because they assume it's hard, but that's life. If you don't bother looking, then you're never gonna, find out the truth. So when you visited there, what you were spending most of your time, like you were drinking with your tour guides, like how are they like
how are their views towards America?
So every night, drinking is very much part of the Korean culture. Just like, if I went to Ireland and meeting up with a friend, I'll grab a beer, at a pub. Same thing. Like at the end of the day's activities, they go to the bar in the hotel and invite us for a drink. You don't have to drink with them. And they would ask a lot of questions. And even during the tour too, they would ask a lot of questions about, where we were from. And they would ask things like, I heard it's like this, I heard it's like that, I've never been. And of America, at the time of 2011, we had surmised, and they had told us that the only impression they had of the United States were episodes of Cops. It's a TV show way back in the 90s, pretty popular, and it basically just shows episodes of, our police force responding to calls and, arresting or, not arresting people. So if the only impression you have of the United States are episodes of a TV show called Cops, then the impression they had of us when they asked is it full of crime? Do you have a lot of guns? Is it like everything's on fire and everyone's trying to commit crimes there? So it's kind of amusing. That's all they know, and you can't blame them because that's all they get. But they also get information too. Like they know things. They know Michael Jackson died. They got that news, but they thought that when they asked that he died of AIDS, right? And that's not what he died of, and we had to tell them no, that's not the real thing, not the real truth. But they're like, no, seriously, that's what we heard. That's
it's
what we know.
They believe what they hear,
right. And that's we're also a byproduct of all the things we get from the media too. So I know that I had to make an opinion for myself when I went, and that wasn't affected by the media. So I think the fact that they're generally asking questions show that they're curious, and their impression of the United States is whatever they get, which is episodes of Cops and twisted forms of the truth, like Michael Jackson's death.
So by the time that you have spent with them, do you think they're happy? Like you said, of course, their life as a citizen and life as a tourist when you visit is totally different. Like I've heard stories about how these people try to escape from labor camps and starvation, and their human rights is just not great.
We didn't see that as tourists. They regimented the itinerary so that we only saw what they wanted us to see. And just like any tour, there was very little room for freedom to wander around. We crossed the street by ourselves, but we didn't see any of that. And I cannot report on things that I haven't seen with my own eyes. I do know that it exists, the human rights violations, and all over the world. My life as a social justice activist, I've been very keen to what different countries have performed in terms of human rights violations. Even Western countries too, and the things in the past and in history. And I think that's an unfortunate part of humanity, and that's something that we all try to work hard together as the human race to improve upon and try not to repeat history. And just being aware of it and being there at the same time but not seeing it, was just the cognitive dissonance was very present. But unfortunately, I can't really say and make an opinion on things I didn't see with my own eyes. And I just think it's unfortunate that it does exist, and not one country is responsible. It's multiple countries, and we all need to work hard to make sure to minimize it, not get rid of human rights violations whenever we can see fit, wherever it is around the world.
So the people that you have come in touch with during that trip, like North Koreans and even our tour guides, you think they are doing okay, they are happy? And
well, the people in New York that you see running to their job, generally happy, and they're all rushing somewhere. And that's, I think, I'm not saying that New York is exactly like Pyongyang, but you don't really know, right? The split second that you have walking by someone in the street, how would you really know what they're feeling? And the impression I got was we definitely walk by many civilians, especially when we took the subway, or we walked in a very heavily business district. There were tons of people, tons of North Koreans, all in a rush to going somewhere. There was nobody lying around in a cafe sipping tea or sipping on a coffee.
How you see in Williamsburg?
Yeah, in Williamsburg. It's not like in Asia where people are smoking their hookahs, people watching. The impression I got in Pyongyang, it was a functional business, city, and the mentality of people going somewhere to go somewhere. They were, in the middle of something. So it was very hard for us to get a sense of, are they just, doing this because they're in a rush and they're late, or they're, scared, or they're just busy, or they're generally happy they have a job and going somewhere. We don't know. It just looked very rushed, and we didn't have much of an opportunity to interact with them. And they're very shy. I mean, like, they definitely like came close to us, and like we sat next to them on the subway, and they were like looking at us in a way that was like curious.
Like they know you guys are not from here.
Yeah, of course, and they were just like curious, and they acknowledged us as foreigners, but they didn't like talk to us. It's not like, you know, other countries where they're just staring at you and they're just like, what country are you from? You know, they didn't talk to us as much, and we try to interact, but it's like that language barrier. They're just like, can't really interact. So we didn't have much to say in terms of what, you know, our impression of them through very minimal interactions that we had. The only interactions that we had was with our tour guides, who are trained to speak pretty good English, and the people working at, you know, whatever establishment we went to, whether it's like a restaurant or, you know, a microbrewery, which they have, and there's some minimal interaction there, but generally friendly. You know, happy that they have a job. I mean, the people in the tour guides, they were working for the government because everything's government run. And, you know, I think being part of the government, they seem like happy that they're, you know, doing something, you know.
So what is your personal view towards Kim's regime and Kim?
Like, what's my personal view towards like politics and government in general? Like, I do follow it, but like, I don't really, for someone who studied all this, you know, for a long time, I don't really put any credence to anyone until I see results, right? It's all, I get it, like there's all show and spin room and things, the way you spin things, and everyone does it. We've seen in our politics, every country, right? And for me to form an opinion one day and then change my opinion the next day, that's emotionally exhausting. Because every day something changes, everything's flipped in a different way, everything's seen in a different angle. And it's like all this political punditry that goes on and all this analysis. It's just tiresome to keep up with it. You know, it's why put so much of your emotional weight into things that are external when you should really just focus on what makes you happy and what, you know, what brings you joy. And that's not going to be what happens thousands and thousands of miles away. That being said, what's going on, as in someone who's like more involved, because I've been to that country and I, you know, talking about this, and I don't want to also, I'm not advocating for you to live on an island, ignoring what's going on around you either, but just a balance of the two. And that balance is, I do care about it, but only if the results directly affect the future of our planet and the security of our, you know, peace process, whatever that may be. And that acutely should mean something to me. But right now, everything's just starting. So whatever the results of the summits will lead to, that's what I care about. But we haven't gotten to that point yet because I haven't seen any results. So I can't form an opinion about that either.
All right, so let's transition into something lighter, okay?
Oh, sure.
So like you are an emergency medical resident physician, and at the same time you are a travel blogger, which turned into a travel company, which we all know it's called the Monsoon Diaries. How did you juggle between like managing to graduate on time medical school and traveling to 150 countries in those times? Like, how do you manage your time, your finances, and you know?
So one wouldn't have existed without the other. And what I mean by that is if I didn't travel, I probably wouldn't have made it through medical school. I probably would have failed out or quit or burn out. But at the same time, I wouldn't have traveled so rigorously if it weren't for the little time I had during medical school. Right? It seemed that, you know, that the intensity of med school and the burdens and stress of going to a medical school in the United States, let alone a city like New York, with our patient population is very difficult and very sick and very underserved and underprivileged. I want to help them, but it's also very emotionally taxing, intellectually taxing as well, with the amount of material we have to study at the same time. And to balance that out, you need something equally intense, and I found that was the travel that I did. So taking weekend trips. Yes, I came back physically tired. I would leave Friday night and get on a flight to Ireland or somewhere in Europe or the Caribbean island, get there in the morning and do 24 or 36 hours there and lead a trip with like 7 to 8 other friends, medical students, strangers, people also going through what I'm going through and want to try this lifestyle out. And I'll come back Sunday night or Monday before class, not missing anything, not skipping a beat, and then be physically tired, but mentally I'm ready I'm recharged, I'm getting ready to work, because we're only young once. We're never going to have this time ever in our lives again where we can do both. And it was what traveling had done for me in terms of my youth and my energy, that mentally, that allowed me to finish med school and then finish now residency. I'll be graduating in 3 days.
Yes.
Yeah, now I'm attending. And looking back, it's really like they go hand in hand. One could not exist without the other. I think we're all brought up to believe, especially in this society, as parents or guardians or society or people, as teachers, we mean the best when we teach our children and our people in my generations, millennials, post-millennials, that you can only do one thing. You should focus on one and do the other one. Task switching, which is, I think, valid in many regards. But I think the more things you have on your plate, actually, the more efficient you can be. Everything helps each other out. You don't do just one thing. You're a complex human with many different interests. And if you wait too long, you might be too late to experience the life that you always wanted. So everyone deserves their best life. So how I did it, you only have one life, so treat your body like a temple. I slept like 8 hours every 24 hours. So I do overnight shifts. That's why I don't say 8 hours a night. Stay 8 hours a night, because the more sleep you get, the more efficient you are, the more free time you get.
Yeah, it's just like, juggling, and then at the same time, most importantly, take care of your health.
Take care of your health.
So you can go longer, right?
Yeah.
You can
go to the
further.
gym 3 days a week. Yeah, I do it at least 3 to 4 days a week. You only got one body, so treat it well. You eat well, and then with all that mindset, and once you take care of your body, that comes first, you're gonna have all this energy, all this energy to become more efficient with your work, whether it's med school, and then you get all the work done faster. You're in a better mood, and then you have more free time. And then with that free time, what are you gonna do? To sleep more.
It's like you kept your soul, like by doing medical school and keeping your body healthy and traveling. It's just like.
Yeah, and I'm not. And a lot of people's like, oh, you're very lucky. Only you can do this. But like, there's a reason why the Monsoon Diaries is a travel company. I didn't start this as a travel company. I started as a blog. Like, hey mom, I'm here right now. Or hey med school, like I'm gonna leave now and follow my travels. I thought I was crazy, and I was doing I was crazy enough to do something that I thought I was gonna fail out, and I was gonna blog about that. That'd be interesting. But luckily, that didn't almost happen. It almost happened, but it didn't happen. That's another story. But there's a reason I became a company is because all these people who were reading it started coming with me, and they were actually doing the same thing I was doing. I'm not that special. I'm just a normal guy who gets bored easily. That somehow community people also found a way to make this work. It's not just me. And then that became a company because they were like, you really should, turn this into something that you can share with other people, and because you're doing all this work. And you're helping out so many other people, this is something that it should be a service.
I think that's good because how it started as a passion instead of like, oh, I want to make money, which is fine, like making, of course.
If that's your passion.
Yeah, but it's like you started from a passion and you started from the right foundation.
Right.
So you had the right focus. So why this is, I would say it would go smoother, I guess.
Yeah, any good entrepreneurship is you shouldn't do it for the money or for the business. You don't create a business, you create a movement. The business and money, if you feel passion, it'll come to you. It's like love. So if you're like desperate and single and looking for someone, everyone's gonna run away. But if you're like, you know what, I don't need I've got this. I'm okay with that. I love myself. Then everyone's gonna be interested in everyone's gonna be interested in what you're doing. It's like, wow, he's so like, or she's so like, self-sufficient and so like get everything together. And then they get everyone to come to them. And it's the same thing with this. Like I was doing this for myself. I didn't want to bring in other people. I didn't need to bring in other people. But if you ask, I'll be happy to. I love sharing this. If it worked for me, they should work for other people. And I'm just very grateful to have a community of people that believe in this and actually continue this on even when I'm not traveling.
So of all the places you have visited, which was the one that's like, wow, it really opened my eyes?
Oh, the perennial question. And if you were talking about North Korea in the equal plane as like the most fascinating place I've ever been, equal to North Korea would be Myanmar. I went in 2011 as well. Then it was also a very hermit kingdoms, right? Kingdoms that have been closed off to the rest of society and evolved in their own way, separate from the rest of the world, uninfluenced. They have their own way of doing things. It's just like evolved in a different path. So you see a completely different way of life and people doing things differently, but still people who are part of our humanity and human race. So I thought that was fascinating. Natural beauty-wise, Antarctica, Namibia, I mean, two completely opposite, but two of the most beautiful places nature-wise. The country that I will go back to over and over and over and over again is India.
Even though that
I don't go to the same
breaking your code, but that's fine.
Rules are meant to be broken when it comes to that. As long as it doesn't hurt anyone, rules are meant to be broken. So I break that rule. I do go back to India a lot, and the surrounding countries, so Pakistan, Bangladesh. The most underrated country is Slovenia. I was very surprised. And Iraq, I was just there last month. Wow. Very surprising. The most magical is New Zealand. And
it's just the nature. I've never been, but I've seen pictures, and just like, it's Instagram worthy. It's like filtered, but really it's not filtered.
Yeah, just Instagram, everything. Yeah, you don't know what to post, but it's just like but it's not just the nature, but when you land, it's a different feeling. You get that. India has that same feeling, but like India, like
is it like serene, calm?
There's something magical. Like, it's something in the air. Whatever you're breathing, it's just I brought I think 8 people with me, 10 people with me, and all of them said when we landed something different. We had landed from 1 week in Australia, and that was fine. We're having fun. First minute in New Zealand when we landed, we got out of the airplane. We're like, something is different. Wow. And then the most fun I ever had was Cuba. Yeah, in 2014. So those are my favorites for now.
So where's your next destination?
Planning stages right now. Some are up. I just need to pick a date. So how it works now that I'm graduating residency is my schedule is more flexible as a attending doctor. So you tell me when you want to go, and then I'll go. I'm very spontaneous.
So you would listen out to the community and people who want to go, and you will plan the trip. Like if they want to go to Japan, it's like, okay, like 8 people want to go, maybe I should.
Yeah, wherever's the most popular date, I'll go. I'm making a trip. So it's much more flexible and more spontaneous, and you own the trip instead of me deciding where to go. Just taking advantage of that flexibility. So Armenia, Azerbaijan is up on that list. Azerbaijan already been, but I want to go back to explore. A lot of people want me to do Japan like properly, like north to south. I was in Tokyo. I've been to Japan already, but I didn't explore the rest of the country outside of Tokyo. I'm going to Nauru this winter, and that is the least visited country in the entire world with 150 visitors a year.
Wow!
And we're just going to add to that by like 300% our arrival. So we're definitely doing that. So you want to join us for the least? I call it the end of the world tour, or the edge of the world, because you just feel like you're at the end of the world. And I have all of Central and West Africa, and Greenland and Papua New Guinea left before I'm done with. And I've visited every single country. Wow. So if I haven't been, it's on my list. And it's basically whatever you want, wherever you want to go. We measure a journey. A journey is best measured by people, by friends, not miles. So I'll go for the people. So wherever you want to go, let me know. Just message me on my website and just
Monson Diaries.
Yes, I want to go here, and this is when I can go. Sure, let's do it. I mean,
it's like you're a tour guide, but at the same time, you're also like visiting. It's not just like, oh, I've been here, so like, oh, this is it, this is what. But it's like you're also curious, you're also excited.
A tour guide implies I know what I'm doing, and I've been there before. I have no idea what I'm doing.
That's what I was saying. Like, if you've never been to, like, you've been to Japan, but if you've never been to Japan and you're bringing 8 people, like, how can you be that tour guide if you've never been there, except for looking things online, you know?
Maybe an experienced guide. I mean, but like I'm experiencing everything for the first time, so that's what everyone signs up for, right? The energy is infectious, right? And even if I've been to a place twice, I just actually would say, I know this place well. You go off on your own, and I'm kind of in the background, just like seeing how they are doing. I say, I'm not going to lead. We're just going to wing it, because the whole aspect of what we're trying to do is bring the independent backpacker adventure spirit to group traveling. So, or group travel for people who hate group traveling. So everyone feels like they own it, and it's spontaneous. And because of all that free time, and I also put a lot of free, spontaneous time in our. I mean, we see everything. We for the first day we see everything. Go to see all the sites. We check all the boxes off. But for the next day, or for the rest of the time, it's free time, and people fall in love. People decide to stay. People decide to split off and meet somewhere else. People, it's an adventure. And I love it's your trip. And while all I want to do is give you access to give you that feeling of living that best life without anyone telling you how to live it.
I guess I really gotta sign up. It's not like a promotion thing, but it's like, man, I mean, I'm not a adventurous person, but it's always nice to visit a country. I would go and I would get homesick. You know how you go to a new place, even if it's like, I'm in New York, I go to like Vegas for like a week. Like on the second day, I'm like, it's kind of weird. It's just a mindset.
But it's just a balance in life. I think there's a such thing as burning out while traveling. I've definitely felt it after I traveled for like 3 to 4 months alone, with like the most beautiful place in the world, just like, I took a photo and like, okay, that's it. Because I've seen so many beautiful things by then. Which is why our trips, why we're only like 1 week long, or maybe 2 weeks long, at most 3 weeks. But we do these weekend trips too, because by the time you start getting homesick, you're back home. And then you're back home and you're starting missing the travel thing, and then we travel again. So it's a nice balance. And no matter what, you're always going to be doing things that you miss. So you're always satiating that living my best life. No matter if then you're actually doing right by yourself, your soul. Right, my soul is hungry for this. Boom, I'm already doing it. But the moment you do enough of it, my soul's like hungry for back home, you're already back home. So then your soul's like, you know what, you're treating me right, you know, and then you just come out of it just a happier person, someone who's in tune with yourself, and that allows you to do anything, accomplish anything, especially things like medical school and residency. And that's how I was able to survive, I mean, not survive, but thrive in such a high stress settings, because I was in tune with myself, I was self-aware, and I was listening to myself, and I was doing all the things that I felt my soul and myself needed. And I'm just, again, very grateful that other people responded, and I have a community of thousands of followers and friends of friends from my blog that also believe in the same thing, in the same way.
All right, so my final question for you would be, for those Americans who wants to go to North Korea or visit North Korea, do you have any advice or like suggestion for them?
I think right now the political situation is a little tricky with regarding to Americans. I think after everything that's been going on, there is a sense of responsibility that people should assume when they go. And I'm not your parent or guardian to tell you what to do with your life. But just know that there is a sense of responsibility, and if you still want to go, knowing everything that you know now, because when I went, it was very different than what it is now. What it is now, all you have to do is find a partner company or a tour company that represents North Korea. There are plenty based out of mostly China, but also elsewhere. And you just message them saying, I'm interested. And then they'll give you a form. You fill it out. It takes about 5 seconds. You don't have to send in your passport. You email the form back. And then in 2 to 3 days, up to 2 weeks, you should be accepted. With North Korea, like as long as you're just an average Joe, you'll get accepted. And then you just have to pick up your visa in Beijing. The flip side is that if you're not American, then you can go anytime you want. Just find the tour company. If I think you're Chinese or the Chinese passport, just contact the tour company, the government-run company in North Korea. I think they do it directly. I think, but I'm not. I have an American passport, so I did it that way.
So I think that's all we have for today. It's really nice to be able to sit down and talk with you. I mean, I've never been to North Korea. All I hear is like mostly negative news, like videos, and so it's nice to hear from someone who has been there, who has stepped in there and felt the culture and the environment. So for those of you guys who wants to follow Calvin's son on his journey to take down the world, almost, you can go to Monsoon Diaries. We are gonna leave a link down there, and you can go and check him out and maybe join him on one of his tours.
I'll see you on the trip, hopefully. I'll see you on a trip.
Yes,
hopefully.
I have to go. I have to go like maybe this winter,
And we'll do a live news broadcast.
I know, right? Like we should do like a travel vlog.
I'm not even joking. That's a good idea.
So good.
Thank you.
So he's Calvin's son. I'm Castle. I guess we'll see you next time. Bye.